gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
This is LMDtv. I'm Fazmina Imamudeen. Joining us tonight is Subhashini Abeysinghe. Hello, Subhashini. I welcome you to the show.
Hello, Fazmina. Great to be here.
Could you cite two of the most critical pros and cons from the interim budget?
Yes, Fazmina, I think there has been a lot of discussion and attention on the budget numbers, especially are the revenue targets realistic? Are the budget deficit numbers realistic? Can it be achieved? Since that area has been discussed a lot, I thought I would like to focus on something else which is equally critically important, being my area of specialty as well on trade. So we are in a debt crisis where one of the biggest problems is our inability to generate foreign exchange revenue. So it's very important to see where the country is heading in terms of improving our forex earnings. And in that sense, where the reference to exports in a budget document and what the government policy is towards exports is always an important thing. And the fact that the budget covered that, but one of the biggest drawbacks in this is this idea of re-engaging with global economy to tap into regional and global value chains, to enhance exports and export-oriented FDI. The problem is these exact same words and promises has appeared on numerous budget speeches over the years, but we have achieved very, very little in these areas. And that is exactly why we are where we are, because why we are unable to service our foreign debt also is partly because we are not generating enough foreign exchange revenue. And then there is another important thing that the budget speech says, that we are gradually phasing out trade barriers, especially para-tariffs, again repeated on many budget speeches, and the progress we have made is very poor. So one of the challenges that we always come across with Sri Lanka's budgets and these kind of policy statements is action and actually getting this implemented. And in that sense, I also see a contradiction between this re-engaging with the global economy and export-oriented FDI, and then this renewed support that the government has said on national export strategy, which the government says a well-thought-out framework of export support, with broad stakeholder consensus that was developed in 2018. Fazmina, since 2020, the global trade landscape and the global supply chains have undergone enormous transition. And in addition to the COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine war, the China-US rivalry, these all have reshaped the global trade landscape or reshaping it. And most of my research over and over again has emphasized one of the problems with Sri Lanka's export strategy is failing to learn and understand the global trends and respond proactively and positively to the emerging opportunities and how to overcome and address challenges. So my greatest worry is if we think a national export strategy, which was developed in 2018, is going to be the ideal document or strategy to take us forward and take the export sector forward in 2020 and beyond, I think we need to reevaluate it. It's very important to understand. And in the past, why we missed the global value chains, that Vietnam to Thailand to Malaysia to everyone benefited immensely from global value chains, have been there since 1990s. And I say we are 4 decades late to join global value chains, and we've never succeeded in export-oriented FDI exactly for the same reason, because we have been totally out of sync with global trends, whereas Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and these other countries were very much in sync with global trends. Their policy responded quickly and positively to these trends and tapped into these benefits. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka does not seem to have learned from our past mistakes. We still try to do export strategy looking internally, looking into the country, but not out at the world. So to me, that is one of the biggest drawbacks in the interim budget in terms of export strategy.
In big picture terms, how practical are the measures introduced in the interim budget in the context of implementation?
Yeah, that question is important, Fazmina, simply because when you look at the implementation, what you need to look at also is the government's own past track record. So Verité research has been tracking government budget implementation for about 5 years now. Now, when the government budget, especially the proposal is in the budget speech, is discussed a lot in media, discussed a lot among the private sector, the chambers, associations, and people respond to these promises made at the time the budget speech is made in the parliament and the budget is approved positively or negatively. But what we notice is in Sri Lanka, there is very little attention paid to actual implementation of these promises. What is happening to them after the budget speech ends. And what we really have seen is one of the biggest problems is that government actually never announces the progress they have made in the promises promises they make at the time of the budget is approved. They say, the government is going to allocate, let's say 100 billion rupees or 1,000 billion rupees to project A, project B, but what happened to this project A and project B at the end of the budget year is something that is unknown. And that is why we try to track it. And if for anyone interested, I would like to invite them to go to publicfinance.lk web platform and check out our dashboard on budget promises. What we see is one of the biggest challenges we encounter to track progress is refusal of the government agencies to disclose information. And this is very unfortunate because we live in we have a Right to Information Act, and as per that act, the government is obliged to give this information to us. And this is promises made by the Minister of Finance publicly in the Parliament, telling that the government is going to use tax money to implement these proposals. And the fact that these respective agencies refuse to give information to actually about the progress of the proposals that is being implemented with public money for the benefit of the people and the country is extremely unfortunate. And even 2021 budget proposals, when we tracked 48 of the proposals we tracked, the information was either not disclosed or the information provided was unusable to actually track progress. And when you look at the past track record of implementation, unless we really make substantial changes in the way we monitor the oversight and monitoring of budget implementation, it's very difficult to think positively about the commitment and the ability to implement. And it's heartening to see that the Minister of Finance saying, and that is the President saying, that they are planning to have a mechanism to monitor implementation, which is critical, especially at this time, where one of the biggest problems the country is facing is lack of confidence and in the public finance management in the country, and to build that confidence and credibility, monitoring and also transparency, both are equally important. We do hope that the crisis at least will make the government act differently and think differently, which is and not think that they can get away doing budgets and implementing budgets the same way they have been doing in the past so many years.
What expectations do you have of the government's commitment to reduce the budget deficit going forward?
So Fazmina, if you look at Sri Lanka's budget, so all Sri Lanka's budgets will have a medium-term outlook. So they will tell what they're going to do in terms of the budget deficit and the debt targets and the revenue targets for 5 years. It's not just for that year. And every the document that is published in the past will say that we're going to bring down the deficit, we're going to increase the revenue, we're going to bring down the debt, right? But in reality, the track record is very poor. I will just take one example. We have a Fiscal Management Responsibility Act, and that act was brought in to actually instill discipline, discipline in managing public finance. And one of the things that Fiscal Management Responsibility Act envisages is that government will keep to a budget deficit of 5% of GDP. When you look at how Sri Lanka has really been kept to line with the provisions in the act, it is not that great. One of the things is if the requirement is to maintain a 5% budget deficit, at least when you budget the deficit, right, at the time of the budget speech, you are actually saying I'm expecting a certain percentage of budget. But what we see is when we look at the budgets, the Sri Lankan government has budgeted deficit is also above 5%. And actually since 1977 to this date, Sri Lanka has not achieved a 5% budget deficit. So this idea that we will be able to get there is like many other governments, is definitely the right direction, but we have always been going in the wrong direction. But what I want to emphasize is we don't have the luxury to do that anymore. We really need to get our act together and really try to stick to the fiscal targets and the commitments. I do hope so for the country, for all of us. But our past track record has not been great. And also when you look at the past IMF arrangements, what our research shows is that actually out of the 16 IMF programs we've had, we have completed 9, but we have not even completed 7 programs. So that's our past. But what's important is for us to learn from the mistakes in the past and not repeat them. At least now we should learn a lesson. And I do hope that the government realizes that they need to change the way they behave.
What concrete steps should be taken to address tax evasion?
So one of the problems that Sri Lankan taxpayers face, or I'm sure the corporate as well as individuals would understand, that paying tax is difficult. It is cumbersome. It is time consuming. So one of the most important things that a government can do to encourage tax paying of tax is to make it very simple and easy. So your ability to calculate the taxes, demonstrate evidence, all of that is to be made easy. The payments to be made easy, automation and allowing online payments, all of that are very important. But unfortunately, what we've done in 2020 is a very good example of something we should not do, because we have to really make sure, encourage as much as possible to use methods of efficient tax collection. And we had two very efficient methods of tax collection until 2019. That is what we call the withholding tax and the pay-as-you-earn tax, because these are the ability to evade is low, and the taxpayer has zero effort to spend zero effort and time in paying the tax, because pay-as-you-earn tax collection method is one that makes it mandatory for most employees to deduct the tax due on the salary of employees and remit that tax directly to the government on a monthly basis. And when this advanced income tax was introduced, what happened was that it was left to the employee to voluntarily initiate deduction on a monthly basis and to self-disclose and file income taxes return annually. And that, as a result, you know what happened? Sri Lanka anyway has a very low tax base. But what happened is the number of taxpayers, income taxpayers, reduced from 1 million in 2019 to 200,000 by 2020, and 32,000 by 2021. And the simple change of this efficient tax collection method led to a reduction of registered employees paying in tax by 82% from 2019 to 2020, and another 84% by 2020 to 2021. And the same is with withholding tax, because banks directly calculate and pay to the Inland Revenue Department. But the fact that that the individuals having to do that also led to a drastic reduction in the number of people who pay tax on income, tax on interest income. So these are, these kind of measures encourage tax evasion, sometimes simply because it is unnecessarily cumbersome. And what we need to do, what is very important, is going forward not to do these things, and also to reinstate this kind of efficient tax collection methods that existed, which we did away with, and that really had a very negative impact on tax revenue of the country.
How about the provisions to ensure that Sri Lanka Customs discharges its responsibilities effectively and efficiently?
Sri Lanka actually
will see a real change.
Yeah, actually, Sri Lanka Customs is important for both government income and also foreign exchange earnings, because Sri Lanka Customs is the organization that actually sits at the border when goods go out of the country and when goods come into the country, and how efficiently and effectively they basically render their services is critically important for us to succeed in exports. And in this regard, we lag far behind most countries in terms of really using the latest technologies. The automation of the trade processes and the customs processes has really lagged behind. And not only that, many trade facilitation measures that many of other competing countries have implemented in the last decade or so, Sri Lanka is yet to implement. And these definitely affect our competitiveness against other compared to other countries, and that from that perspective, it is critical and vital that we really get Sri Lanka Customs to be at par with other country customs organizations, especially the ones that we compete with, in terms of adopting the latest technologies and latest methods in really managing the cross-border transactions. On the other hand, customs is so important because 50% of the tax revenue of the government is collected by Sri Lanka Customs. And that means it plays a vital role in really as a collector of tax for the government, in addition to as an organization that facilitates trade. In this perspective, I really would like to bring to everyone's attention the Presidential Commission of Inquiry on Sri Lanka Customs that was appointed by the late president in 2021. And about 3 months ago, the commission actually handed over the report, their report to the president. And it includes, the press release by the Presidential Secretariat says that it includes recommendations on how to cooperate administrative and operational processes of Sri Lanka customs to effectively and efficiently deliver their services and discharge their responsibilities. And the press release then said the president instructed that the report be referred to the parliament as early as possible, but unfortunately to this date, this commission report has not been tabled in the parliament and it is not in the public domain. Well, it is heartening that the interim budget said that the government is committed to implement the recommendations in the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. However, it is even more important to really table it in the parliament and make it available to the public as well, because this is a very important area to look into in terms of both government revenue and promotion of exports.
What incentives, if any, are there to attract the foreign investments that we desperately need?
I really like the word you used, incentives, because this is a debated subject. And there are people who think, oh, we need to give tax holidays and tax incentives to bring foreign direct investment. And that is why we are offering longer and longer tax holidays with the Strategic Development Act. I think Strategic Project Development Act, we had some time back. We gave 25 years or so of tax holidays, and with the recent Port City Commission, I think we have doubled that. But what is very important to understand, and there is enough and more empirical research that has shown tax holidays without a conducive and enabling business environment will not bring foreign investments into a country. And what foreign investors are looking at lot more than tax holidays is the policy consistency, the bureaucratic red tape, and the transparency and efficiency of the processes. And these are far more important than tax holidays. And in the absence of this, if your policies are extremely inconsistent, if the government keeps on changing taxes so frequently, and if it is very difficult and time consuming to take goods in and out of the country, and when you are trying to get investment approvals, if you are being sent from post to pillar, and if it is taking a long time, and if you have to bribe officials on the way to get permits and approvals, then the foreign investors are like, why do I have to do this in Sri Lanka? And especially because there are other destinations that provide much better, investment facilitation as well as a business environment, and they go to those countries. So, and also we have given tax holidays for a long time. And when you look at Sri Lanka's own foreign investment track record, we have clearly seen that tax holidays has not been able to bring more foreign investments into the country. So I think we should not really be looking at tax incentives, but we should really be looking at creating a better business environment and also a better process and a system to make it easy for a foreign investor to come into the country and start a business.
What are your expectations for the 2023 budget, which is to be presented in November?
Like I said before, one of the most important things the budget Sri Lanka should do now is to regain its credibility and reputation in the international financial markets. And with the and really it's very important that we get our sovereign credit rating back to a decent place. So for that, I feel it's very important that we remain committed to our fiscal targets, but really formulating realistic budgets. And when you say formulating realistic budget proposals, one of the major weaknesses that we have seen in the past is that Sri Lanka's budget proposals, and most of the tax proposals, are very poorly formulated, that they are not being formulated based on good data and analysis. And when tax proposals are poorly formulated, there are research reports we have done that you can actually find on our website, where we have assessed government's own assumptions and predictions of the budget and the revenue. And what we see is that their revenue forecasts are not realistic, and some of the proposals do not even have revenue forecasts. So that is mainly because these are poorly formulated. They're not done based on good data and analysis. So one of the most important things that 2023 budget, as well as budgets going forward, must do is make sure that when you formulate the budget, the tax proposals and the policy proposals, that they are based on good data and analysis. And the second one is oversight and monitoring. Sometimes you say one thing in the budget, but act exactly in the opposite when you are actually implementing. You do not implement certain project proposals, certain ones get neglected. And that is what another important thing we've noticed is the very, very weak oversight on the budget implementation. And we have frequently submitted right to information requests to the Ministry of Finance, because Ministry of Finance is one of the most important oversight bodies, because they are the ones who distribute the money to relevant government ministries and agencies, and they should have they should be monitoring the progress of these proposals. But unfortunately, we have not got positive responses from the Ministry of Finance. So it's very important that the oversight and monitoring is strengthened. And then the transparency and accountability. We frequently find that there are significant deviations from what the budget stated that it will do and what actually happened, but very rarely there is any government really explains the reasons for the deviation and what actions they plan to take to address the issue. So this accountability, lack of accountability, is a major problem. And then lastly, the transparency. It is very important that there is this information and documents available and accessible to the public. So to me, what I want to see going forward, we can have so many targets and a lot of discussion now on targets and can we achieve these fiscal targets, but we really want to know there must be a process to achieve that targets, and lack of that process is what has made us miss all these targets. So going forward, it's very, very important that we institute a good fiscal management process and a budget monitoring process.
Subhashini, thank you for shedding light on the interim budget and the impact it has on our economy. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, Fazmina, for inviting me. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
And that's all from us. Good night.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.